We gave you DS, a new Game Boy, and new games to play on them. And now you say, you want a revolution? Well, we've got one.
When the Nintendo Wii first released in 2006, it was truly a global phenomenon. Thousands of people were waiting outside for the slight chance of picking up Nintendo's newest console. And who can blame them? From the moment the Wii, going by the name Revolution at the time, was revealed at E3 2006, audiences were enamored by the idea of a fully motion-controlled console. While competitors Microsoft and Sony were more concerned with making their consoles faster and more advanced, Nintendo took a step back to focus more on the way that people interacted with their games. It's safe to say that this approach worked, both at the time and nearly 20 years later. Before the Wii even released, it would dominate polls, with voters proclaiming their excitement for these fun-looking games and their controls. And now, you'll find tons of people rave about how much they loved this console. Even though the Wii wasn't as technically impressive as its competitors, it made up for it with games that were made unique thanks to the motion controls of the Wii. This focus on providing a new and unique user experience was truly a concept that no one had seen before. In early advertisements and trailers, Nintendo would highlight two things about their new console: the innovative motion controls and the different way that games could utilize this new control scheme, as well as the cooperative aspect of the console. Whether it be a family spending quality time together, or two strangers just meeting on the street by sheer coincidence, Nintendo wanted the Wii to be the console for anybody and everybody, with easy to understand controls and games that appealed to a wide audience. The Wii ended up having a ton of games that highlighted the console's unique controls, and what developers could do with them. Pikmin 1 and 2 were re-released under the New Play Control label, showing off how natural it felt to use the Wii's cursor to direct hordes of Pikmin, while controlling Olimar using the nunchuck. Mario Kart Wii implemented motion control steering, allowing kids to get a sense of what being behind the wheel was truly like, and allowing parents to play with them, since the concept of driving is something that's familiar to them. But none of these games were as fun, innovative, and simple to understand as the Wii series of games released throughout the span of the console's life. With all of the possibilities that came with motion controls, Nintendo wanted to create games that would help serve as a basis for players to understand that these controls can mirror actions they would perform in real life. While the series started as a way to help teach players all while playing fun and kind of addictive games, the Wii series would evolve to showcase all of the unique ways that Nintendo developers thought to use these controls, all while holding on to that fun and simple to pick up nature that led to the series' creation. So I thought, what better time to talk about every one of these games, what made them so unique, fun, and memorable, and why I and so many others will always love this series of games. I will preface this by saying I will not be including any of the Wii U games. While they also do a great job at highlighting the Wii U's controls with its gamepad, I want to stick to the 6 or 7 games that were developed on the Wii. Those are, of course, Wii Sports, Wii Play, Wii Fit, and Wii Fit Plus if you want to consider that its own game, Wii Music, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Play Motion, and to top it off, Wii Party. So without further ado, let's look at the game that started off this series and quite possibly the Wii as a whole, Wii Sports. Upon release, the Wii came bundled with the console, a single Wii remote and nunchuck, the sensor bar, which used infrared sensors to help track what the Wii remote was pointed towards, and the Wii Sports game disc. As one of the first newly revealed games for the system at E3 2006, it would only make sense to allow all users the opportunity to play what opened so many people's eyes to the Wii in the first place. There was originally a lot of resistance towards the idea of Wii Sports being included with the console. Nintendo tends to not bundle in games with their consoles, as they aren't fond of giving away their content for free. But due to the Wii's challenging situation where it's embracing a new control medium, Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé fought to have the game included with the console on launch, to the dismay of Nintendo president Satoru Iwata. Some argue that Reggie's idea to bundle the game led to a lot of the Wii's early appeal and success, as well as Wii Sports becoming the 4th highest selling game of all time, earning a spot in the Video Game Hall of Fame in 2023. When developing the game, Nintendo's Software Development Group 2 seemingly had two goals in mind: to make a game that helped showcase the motion control capabilities of the Wii Remote itself, and for the game to be accessible and fun for both first-time players and long-time players. They did this through the inclusion of 5 widely recognizable sports that make up the game, all including large, distinctive movements. To introduce the Wii Remote's motion controls, we were given tennis, baseball, golf, bowling, and boxing, all doing a great job in mimicking the ways that you'd play these sports in real life. In order to not overwhelm players in their first time trying these new controls out, these sports have been massively simplified to keep the focus on the moment-to-moment gameplay as opposed to the nuances you'd see with professionals in their field. To emphasize this more amateur aspect of these sports, rather than playing as professional athletes, or even humans, Nintendo introduced the Mii, used to represent the player and used in each and every one of the Wii series games. Miis are player-created caricatures that help fill the role of the player, adding a more personal aspect to these games. Instead of taking the role of a professional athlete or a nameless character whenever you play, you instead get to play as yourself, or any other zany character you create through the Wii's Mii Maker. The idea for player-based caricatures had floated around the company for quite a while. The Famicom Disk System, Nintendo 64, and even the Nintendo DS having similar ideas for character creation. But it was the development of the Wii that finally greenlit the creation of the widely applicable Mii characters. Are they 100% accurate? No, but the idea is that it more so invests you in the game just a little bit more, and can help provide a bit more entertainment than solely through the games. Once you create your player profile using your Mii, it's time to hop into all of the sports. So put on your Wii Remote safety strap, and let's take a look at what makes each one of these so special. Tennis is the first sport you'll see, and it was the one most heavily showcased at E3 2006. Being the most interactive sport in the game, it was often shown in commercials to demonstrate how the console is meant for everybody. When you load up the game, you're given the option to play either against another player through local multiplayer, or a computer, scaled to your profile's current skill level in doubles tennis, with the choice of a single set, 3 sets, or 5, with the winner being determined by who wins a majority of the sets. Your skill level is determined by how many times you win or lose, and is present for every sport in the game. For tennis, baseball, and boxing, it matters more about how much you win or lose by, with your skill level rising or falling to match that. But for golf and bowling, it matters more how you compare against your prior scores. So long as it's within the same range as your previous playthroughs, you should see an increase in your skill level. In tennis, you're going to be constantly responding to how opposing players or CPUs act, so you'll be doing a lot of Wii Remote swinging. Due to this, Nintendo faced some backlash, with players accidentally letting go of the Wii Remote mid-swing, leading to broken TVs and injured players. Clearly, these people didn't abide by the wrist strap warning shown before every game on the console. I would most certainly know about that. The first night my family had our Wii, playing tennis, the Wii Remote suddenly flew from my hand and broke a small wall-mounted mirror across the room. Since Nintendo went with the choice to simplify these games in comparison to their real-life counterparts, you don't have to worry about moving your character or deciding between a forehand or a backhand swing. As the ball moves throughout the tennis court, your Miis will follow its trajectory and adjust the swing direction as needed. All that you need to do is swing the Wii Remote at the correct time using the swing that your Mii character has already got into position for. But despite the simplicity of the game, there's still a touch of strategy involved in timing your swing. When the ball heads towards your player, you're instinctively going to swing at it to return to the opposing team. But based on when you swing in relation to where the ball is, it can lead to some favorable return placement. Swinging the Wii Remote as soon as you're able to make contact with the ball will send it to the side of the court that matches your swing direction. Delaying your swing until the moment where the ball is just about to pass by you will send the ball to the same side of the court that your player is on. If you're going up against some particularly difficult CPU players, or against someone who is just as unrelenting when it comes to long rallies, a quick 1-2 in how you place the ball can make it so that second hit becomes inaccessible by the player in the back, granting you the point. There's also the fast serve, performed by hitting the ball once it's at the absolute peak of when you serve it. I've never had much luck pulling this off, only occasionally doing it, never to repeat it since I haven't poured as much time into this game mode as others. But it's somewhat of an ace in the hole if you want a free and easy point, if you're able to perform it consistently. With the constant back and forth nature of tennis, these games can last the longest out of any sport featured in the game, since there's no time, stroke, or frame limit like in the other sports. Baseball even has a mercy rule to help prevent you from running up the score indefinitely. But there's no limit to how long these tennis rallies can go. Wii Sports tennis was always interesting to me. It was never the first sport my friends or I chose to play, but it also wasn't the last. Years later, that sentiment seems to hold true. Now, I have a job, classes, and other responsibilities, and I can't play a casual round of tennis because there's no telling how long it'll go on. But I most certainly understand why this was so heavily emphasized at conferences and on commercials. Both players are constantly moving and playing the game as opposed to some of the other sports featured in the game, and it served as a really good introductory point for Wii Sports. Wii Sports Baseball is arguably the most overlooked sport in the game. But with how popular baseball is in both the United States and Japan, how could this possibly be the case? Unlike other sports, baseball doesn't just feature you and a singular opponent. You're part of a team with 8 other Miis, either directly from the Mii maker or from the game's internal set of created Miis. The simple fact that you can have a team consisting of all the wacky Miis you've created, be them random people in your life or ones modeled after celebrities, video game characters, or even objects like a burger, helps add a lot of novelty to the game mode. But team play isn't the only thing making the baseball game mode unique. Mirroring real life, there is a stark difference between how you play on offense versus how you play on defense. But both have some glaring setbacks due to how Nintendo chose to simplify aspects of each of the sports present in the game. Offense sees you up to bat, and there's truthfully not a lot of depth to it. You just swing the Wii remote at pitches, similar to how you would swing a baseball bat in real life, making sure you don't swing too early or too late, which would result in a foul ball, a strike, or a very poorly placed ball that's easy for the defense to catch. The only real challenge comes when deciding at which pitches to swing. A fastball straight down the middle is likely to result in some good field placement when hit, resulting in your Mii getting to run the bases. But when you hit curveballs, screwballs, or splitters, it makes it really easy for the infield to pick up the ground ball and get you out at first. You might be wondering why I haven't mentioned any of the running aspects of the sport. Getting on base and choosing if or when to steal bases are some of the most game-changing aspects of baseball. Well, in an effort to make the game simplistic enough to understand for even the most inexperienced of players, you don't get to control your player after the hit, and you don't even get the option to steal bases. Where your batter ends up is determined by how long it takes the computer players to get to the ball, with a single, double, triple, or home run moving all runners their respective number of bases. It isn't a matter of, oh, I can totally get to first. Fast players in the MLB can totally beat out the infield. Instead, it's all out of your hands, as well as the outfield catching a ball that looked to be leaving the ballpark. Thankfully, there are some moments you can take advantage of as a batter. Once you notice that the pitcher is sweating a bit, most likely due to giving up several big hits in the inning, they're more likely to throw pitches that are easy to hit for home runs. But once again, you can be cursed with the outfield pop fly, so even there it's out of your hands. But once you rack up 3 outs, you switch sides, finding yourself on the pitcher's mound. As a pitcher, it's up to you to prevent the batter from hitting whatever pitches you throw at them. Your pitch speed is determined by how much whip action you put into the Wii remote as you mimic how a ball is actually thrown. Against an opponent in couch co-op play, all they have to do is swing at the proper time. But against a computer, there's truly no way to know whether they'll swing or just watch the ball pass by them. My qualms with the defense as a batter carry over to when you take up position as a pitcher. The placement of your players is completely out of your hands. Sometimes they find themselves so far away from where a ball is actually hit and have to slowly jog over to pick it up, allowing the opponent extra bases. There's also never a question of, can I make this throw in time to tag a runner out? Since the runners don't actually run until the ball is picked up. It takes all of the excitement and suspense out of watching and even playing defense in baseball, and leaves it all up to chance. There's even an inflated possibility that your players will get an error, dropping pop flies or having simple infield ground balls bounce off their gloves. In my short time playing baseball for this video, it seemed as if there was at least an error per inning from both teams, and this is all out of your control. I understand wanting the game to be accessible for everyone, and there's no doubt in my mind that removing a lot of the nuance from the sport makes it so. But if there was an option to enable things such as timing a catch to reduce the risk of errors, or have the D-pad represent which base you'd like your players to throw to on defense to potentially get a runner out, that would have made baseball far less of a skippable sport. Thankfully, Nintendo chose to reduce the number of innings from 9 to 3. Making it so that you won't be stuck playing this repetitive game for too long. Don't get it wrong, I am a fan of baseball. I grew up going to tournaments nearly every weekend for my brother. But with all of the cutbacks Nintendo chose to make in such an interesting sport that gets a lot of flack for being boring already, Wii Sports' rendition of baseball doesn't help the sport's reputation. The next sport offers a more positive rendition of the sport it's based on. Bowling puts you in an actual bowling alley, with a bunch of adoring fans watching you aim for the perfect game. Before even getting into the gameplay itself, the atmosphere here is perfect. The background music, standard for any Nintendo-created game, is actually given a slight echo to mimic how it would be heard over bowling alley speakers. Around you, you'll hear and see other Miis, sometimes even from your console's Mii channel, bowling. The sound of their pins knocking down, as well as indistinct conversations and cheering coming from the background Miis bouncing off the simulated walls of the bowling alley. While every bowling alley that I've visited in real life has all these flashing colors and big TVs everywhere to draw your attention while you're waiting for your turn to bowl, I quite enjoy the more laid-back, professional approach that Nintendo took when designing the space you'd be bowling in for Wii Sports. Wii Sports Bowling sees you bowl 10 frames, with 2 attempts every frame for a potential total of 300 points, or a perfect game. Unlike the previous 2 sports, there's no direct competition you're participating against. You're simply trying to get the highest score possible, and even beat prior scores of yours, which are stored in the bowling score rankings. You can, however, choose to bowl against a number of players, adding competition in that regard. But the game never forces you to challenge somebody else's score as you play the game. Somehow, Nintendo didn't cut out a lot of the more intricate details of bowling. Your Mii will start with the bowling ball, and it's up to you to roll it, similar to how you would in real life, letting go of the B button at the right time to release the ball and hopefully knock down some pins. I won't sit here and claim that I know all of the strategies behind the sport, but it's a bit simpler to understand than any of the others featured in Wii Sports. Nonetheless, it is one of the most relaxing, yet challenging sports to play. When aiming, you're given the option to move your Mii left or right in front of the lane, or turn them left or right for an angle that isn't straight on. While these control options suffice for many players, and are often all that are needed for a high-scoring game, for more advanced players or people who know the sport of bowling in real life, rotating the Wii Remote as you release the ball can help add some additional spin, potentially knocking down pins that would be missed without it. This additional control and ball movement is essential in one of the training modes for bowling, where you're tasked with navigating the ball through a set of barriers by applying the proper spin direction and magnitude. But in standard play, these aren't things you have to consider. It's an incredibly replayable game to try and best your prior scores or even test out some new spin methods. And scaring the audience by letting go of the bowling ball as you swing back is always a fun sight. Similar to bowling, the next sport can see you compete against your own scores or another player if you choose to play competitive multiplayer. Like bowling, golf is arguably one of the most replayable sports in the game, with people today attempting perfect games, speedruns, and all sorts of challenges within this simple game mode. Your goal is, obviously, to complete the course in the least amount of strokes possible. Golf presents you with the option to play on the beginner, intermediate, or expert courses, with a final 9-hole game that consists of every hole present in the prior 3 courses. Now you might be asking, what determines the difficulty of a course? There are a lot of things Nintendo considered when designing the maps all the way back for golf for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Every hole featured in Wii Sports is based off of the maps from NES Golf, so it's a really nice callback to one of their oldest titles. The beginner courses tend to have a more straightforward pathway with minimal obstacles. The number of water hazards, sand traps, and areas considered out of bounds are either reduced or a lot more difficult to get. On top of that, wind direction and speed are important to consider, and for these beginner courses, the speed isn't anything that will affect the trajectory of your ball that much in the air. But for the more difficult courses, it's something that you're going to need to account for. The intermediate and expert courses may see you hitting your ball from one island to the next, or onto narrow patches of land surrounded by water on both sides. A hard challenge, since if your ball lands in the water, that's going to be an additional 2 strokes on your total. Thankfully, the controls are easy to pick up, but can take some time to truly master, as well as a bit of jank since it's difficult for the Wii Remote to sense more subtle movements, such as putting short distances. You're presented the option between 4 clubs, a driver for long distance shots, an iron for more medium distance shots, or if you find yourself on the fairway, a wedge if you're slightly out of the green, and a putter reserved for when your ball lands on the green. You swing the Wii Remote the same way you would a golf club in real life, even with the option to take a couple practice swings until you hold down the B button for your real hit. You get the choice to position your Mii at any angle to potentially alter the trajectory of the ball, allowing you to potentially skip over sections of the course that are marked out of bounds. While you may be tempted to just swing your Wii Remote as hard as you possibly can, too hard a swing can cause your ball to curve to the left or right, indicated by this little shot power meter thing on the left of your screen. So based on where you want your ball to land, or the strength of the wind, you may need to play smart and limit your swing strength. Many people's issue with the sport arises when it comes to the more precise putts you'll find yourself performing at the end of holes. Since the Wii Remote poorly reads more minute movements, it takes a little more strength for it to recognize a putt, often leading you to put too much strength into the swing and the ball skipping right over the hole. I know I experienced this more times than I'm willing to admit, leading to all my great hits and ball placement up until this point being rendered useless. I only recently gained an appreciation for golf, possibly because when I was younger, I always enjoyed the more active sports in the game and the competition that can arise from playing in local multiplayer. But in my spare time, I've been enjoying going through each of the courses, attempting a new high score and better control in my swings. With how beautifully Nintendo recreated their old courses, golfing isn't a bad way to spend your time. The next sport differs from the others. You don't find yourself with a ball. Instead, you're thrown into the ring for some high-level boxing. Many people think this sport, that so obviously differs from the rest, was included because it gave the player a reason to connect the all-new nunchuck to their Wii Remote. While the Wii Remote took a massive step back by removing the joystick which had been present on Nintendo's previous 2 consoles, the Nintendo 64 and Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo gave users the option to use the nunchuck by plugging it into the little port at the bottom of the Wii Remote. This allowed Nintendo to continue their design philosophy of the Wii Remote resembling a standard TV remote, while also allowing users to have a more familiar play experience with the nunchuck. In boxing, the Wii Remote and nunchuck serve as your 2 boxing gloves, with 2 different punch options for each, a high and a low punch, performed by thrusting the Wii Remote or nunchuck at either head level or waist level. But punching isn't all that you're going to be doing. You also have the ability to block and dodge, performed by holding up the Wii Remote and nunchuck, or by tilting both of them to dodge in a particular direction. The goal of this sport is to either knock your opponent out, or hold your ground for 3 rounds and win by decision. As you progress with more difficult opponents, straight offense isn't the smartest option, as your opponent will knock you out when you can't defend, slowly chipping away at your health meter. Dodging and blocking become essential to opening up perfect opportunities to hit your opponent. There are times when you'll perfectly time a dodge, and the game will slightly slow down to indicate that you created the perfect opening for a big hit against your opponent. Many argue that this is the most difficult sport to master, solely because of the CPU Mii character, Matt. Matt is the toughest computer-controlled boxer you'll face. He is quick with his punches and seems to dodge everything you throw at him. He'll take advantage by throwing both head and body shots, forcing you to alter the way you're blocking, or else he'll get some good hits in. His comboing ability is unrivaled, a perfect sequence of punches that's very difficult to guard against. It's no surprise, since in the training mode, you can see newspaper snippets raving about his boxing prowess back in the day. He is the perfect challenge to end your Wii Sports boxing experience. Now, similar to golf, where the sport is out of your hands comes in how the Wii Remote detects your punches. For the most part, it's pretty good and responsive. But there were times where I had the perfect opportunity to strike and it wouldn't register, more commonly with the nunchuck. This is most likely due to the less accurate motion sensor present in the nunchuck, which is not surprising since the device's whole purpose was to add a more conventional control method to the Wii controller for developers to take advantage of. I'm glad boxing was thrown into Wii Sports though. It helps shake up the game modes offered by giving you a sport that Nintendo has had a storied history in developing with the Punch-Out series. I'd also argue it's the one that makes you sweat the most. While the sports make up the majority of the game, each sport offers multiple training modes designed to help hone your skills. Each one of these training modes has a medal system, where the better you perform, results in a higher grade medal, with the platinum medal being the highest you can achieve. Tennis training has 3 modes, one where you simply return the ball for points, one where you have to return the ball to specific areas to score points, and the last being to hit the ball against a wall and break targets, with the ball progressively breaking down the wall over time, adding more opportunity for you to miss and end the game. These are all really well done at teaching you about the more advanced aspects of where to return the ball and how to hit it there, as well as a simple and fun time killer just to hit the ball against the wall over and over with some really relaxing music in the background. Baseball offers the home run derby, where the goal is to obviously hit all 10 pitches into the stands. The more challenging of the baseball training modes comes with swing control, where you have to time your swing in order to send the ball in the direction that the game wants you to. While in real life this is an important skill to help prevent fielders from getting you out, it's not necessary in Wii Sports, since you can just blast home runs the entire time until you force a mercy rule. The simplest training mode, but the one that holds arguably the most benefit, is hitting practice. You're thrown a series of 30 hittable pitches, and the goal is for you to make contact with each one of them. Bowling provides some of the more entertaining challenges out of all the training modes. The first is called picking up spares, where you're set in front of a lane with the goal of knocking down all of the remaining pins. You start off with 1, but as you progress to further stages, more pins appear in a variety of different formations, forcing you to consider how you want your ball to hit the pins in order to knock down all of them, even in incredibly difficult formations. Power throws sees you attempt to knock down an increased number of pins in a bowling lane where the gutters have been blocked off. So the only way for the ball to go is straight into the pins. You start off with 10, but it increases all the way up to 91. This can help you fine-tune the power you put into your rolls, since it's gonna take a lot of strength to knock down all 91 pins. The last training mode is the one I briefly mentioned earlier, spin control. Like I said, there's gonna be a series of walls set up throughout the lane, and it's up to you to put the proper spin on the ball, with more difficult stages having more difficult wall formations. I personally think this is the most fun, since spin is never something you'd have to consider heavily in normal play. But here, that's the whole point of the training mode. The training for golf focuses more on precision than any of the other sports. The first mode is putting. Your ball is going to be placed at a random spot on the green, and you have to try and putt it into the hole. It's a simple idea, but it can help reduce some of the frustrations that come with putting in game. The next mode, hitting the green, is something that directly blends into your putting practice. The ball gets placed close to the green on the fairway, and the challenge is for you to hit it as close to the hole as possible, with your score being calculated by the cumulative distance of your shots to the variety of holes present in the game mode. I quite enjoy this game mode, since it forces you to limit your strength in swinging to result in better green placement and easier putts in the future. The last mode for golf has you hitting balls onto a target surrounded by water, with your placement on the target determining your score. Each one of these training modes are so amazing, since all of these skills that you develop will translate beautifully to when you play an actual game. Boxing offers dodging, throwing punches at targets in various locations, and working the bag, where your goal is to hit the bags as hard as possible, and even knock them off their chains. In my opinion, dodging is the one that will provide the most benefit as you face harder opponents in the actual sport. Participating in these training modes offers you access to the Wii Fitness section, where your speed, strength, and stamina throughout the training games can help determine your Wii Fitness age, with a chart showing your progression over time. I'm not exactly sure of the validity of any of these fitness tests, and I never used them myself. But it could be seen as somewhat of a precursor to Wii Fit, which would release only 1 year later. After its release, Wii Sports became somewhat of an icon for the console itself. Its gameplay loop and easy to understand controls defined what motion control gaming could look like. It's not far-fetched to say that the Wii wouldn't have been nearly as big as it was without the inclusion of Wii Sports upon the console's release. It gave people something fun to test out the new motion control capabilities, something that was designed to help bring people together, even people who had never picked up a video game before. This must have pushed Nintendo to market the console as something that people of all demographics, all level of experience could play and enjoy. Wii Sports has been looked back upon favorably since its release. It's been used in rehabilitation for stroke victims to help restore certain aspects of movement. Its success spawned numerous spin-offs from both competitors and even third-party companies who would try and shove it onto the Wii. It was even featured in a high-profile case where some cops stopped to take a Wii Sports bowling break in the middle of a drug raid. While every Nintendo console that comes out with a new Mario or Zelda game tends to perform extremely well, Wii Sports might be the only launch game from any Nintendo console that justified why people purchased the console in the first place. Over 15 years later, Nintendo would try and capture that lightning in a bottle again with the release of Nintendo Switch Sports. While the game itself is divisive enough as is, it could never match the perfect set of events that led up to the Wii Sports' original launch. We'll most likely never see a game of this popularity again. Sure, all the past few Game of the Year winners had their moments, but none justified a brand new control scheme or the existence of a console like Wii Sports did. And heck, Nintendo even saw this and developed a direct sequel, Wii Sports Resort, adding several new sports, including the scrapped airplane game that was supposed to be present in the original. But I'll get to that amazing game in due time. While I covered a lot about this game in this video, I'm sure there's something I'm leaving out. And heck, I can't replicate everybody's personal memories with the game. If there's anything about Wii Sports that stands out to you, whether it's a fun fact, a tidbit of information I missed, or any personal anecdotes that you have while playing the game, let me know in the comments. This is only the beginning of a long series covering each one of these spectacular Wii games. So if that's something you want to stick around for, it would mean a lot to me if you'd leave a like and subscribe to my channel, so that I won't slack off in making these subsequent videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video covering Wii Sports' sister game, Wii Play.